Hi, this is Dave Faulkner from the Hoodoo Gurus, and you're listening to Icon Fetch.
Welcome to Icon Fetch, the web's premier music interview show. Now, here's your host, Tony Peters.
It is Icon Fetch time once again, and this time we're talking the Bangles, who first received national attention with their debut album All Over the Place in 1984 and the MTV hit Hero Takes a Fall. The follow-up album, Different Light, would go triple platinum and spawn 3 massive hits with Manic Monday.
It's just another Manic Monday.
If She Knew What She Wants, and Walk Like an Egyptian. Now, the Bangles have just issued Ladies and Gentlemen the Bangles on Omnivore Records, featuring the band's earliest recordings back in print for the first time in years.
Mary Street, now wait for.
And to talk about it, we welcome in founding member, guitarist Vicki Peterson. Vicki, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. Now, this collection here, we're talking stuff that hasn't seen the light of day since it was released. I mean, some of this stuff is actually making its debut on CD. Is that right?
That is correct. Actually, some of the stuff was never released.
Oh, wow.
There are some uber rarities there that are just demos, and a couple of live tracks that never actually got out, and just a couple of oddities like some ads for a punk rock magazine we did, and a radio station in Texas, and so just a collection of some of our fave rarities and oddities.
Nice. Now, do you have like a keeper of the tapes, like a Bangles archivist kind of thing, or did you have to kind of track these down from multiple sources?
Man, we had to track them down. I wish we had an archivist. Susanna's pretty good at keeping the photos in one place, but as far as the audio, they were all over the place. It's in the name of the record. And we had to go find where the master tapes were for the EP originally. It was a bit of a scavenger hunt, actually.
Wow. All right. Well, so I'm kind of surprised. I have to say that, when you had the big bunch of fame in the middle of the 80s, I'm surprised there was not talk. I mean, you think how it is, you've got extra material here, let's release it. I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't talk about reissuing this stuff then.
Well, as far as the EP goes, I wanted to put this out in a digital world, and it hasn't really been available in a physical sense since it was first released on vinyl and cassette tape.
There you go. All right.
So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and there were various reasons why we kept pushing it just down the line, and finally kind of got a little bit of a political will to go and find the tapes and make it happen, and so so that was exciting. And as far as we never put out a official live album. There were a lot of bootlegs floating around, but it's funny. We were touring a lot, and it was back in the dark ages. It was a little more difficult, a little more cumbersome to record live shows. I mean, people did it obviously, but it was just never a priority. And as far as the odd stuff, that to me, it's like I think I needed the advantage of time and perspective to even want to
right.
listen to some of the stuff again.
Right.
Your head spinning round, your thoughts bring you down, but you know that you can call on me.
I mean, when you're finally sort of auditioning things to put on this, was there something that you were like, I don't even remember recording that at all?
No, I remember everything. I remember.
Okay. Do you? Okay. All right.
I don't remember details of exactly where we were. I have like snippets of things, but I can't remember exactly the studio.
Okay.
Some of the demos were done with like a college recording class, and we were just the lab animals.
Wow. Okay.
Somebody in there to make noise so they could record, that kind of thing. But I couldn't tell you exactly where.
Right.
When.
Okay. All right. So I mean, I noticed that this originally came out just like as a digital download on your website, right? Is that how you originally? Right. So then you went with Omnivore. Why did you go with them? I mean, they're doing some great work with a lot of archival stuff. How did you get hooked up with them?
They are, and they've worked with several of our friends, the 3 O'Clock, the Dream Syndicate. I've actually been talking to them for quite a while, and we were going to go with them a while ago and sort of decided to go the digital-only route. Got a lot of requests for physical versions of this stuff, so I kind of went back to them and said, hey, remember me? Let's talk again. And so, they're great people. They do a really good job with this. These kinds of projects, and they had put out last year a compilation of the band I was in New Orleans, the Continental Drifters, and just did a really great. We had such a great time doing that whole entire project. It was really fun, and so I sort of was re-inspired to look at this again. Nice.
Now, if we go all the way back, because this has got your very first single, "Getting Out of Hand."
Getting out of hand, getting out of hand.
This was a song you wrote, right?
Yeah.
What can you tell me? Like, was that like one of the first songs you ever wrote, or were you writing a lot of songs?
No, I started writing songs when I was like 9.
Oh, wow. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't very good. But no one ever gets to hear any of them.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's how that goes. No, but my sister Debbie and I had been in a high school band with our other girlfriends, and had written several songs. And I think "Getting Out of Hand" dates a couple years earlier to I think probably dates into the late 70s.
Okay.
And But we put that together. But it was when I was first starting to write with Susanna, which was great, and we wrote the B-side "Call on Me" together.
You wish you were dead. Take a breath and say, yeah, take a piece of everything you see.
Now this was all self-financed, right? Like you just basically pooled all your money together and went in the studio kind of thing. Now, so you get this 45 pressed up. And this was back in the day when you could actually kind of go around to local DJs and beg them to play your record. And you had one particular guy that was kind of instrumental in kind of getting the ball rolling, right?
Oh, yeah. We had Rodney Bingenheimer, who was and is, sort of the punk rock mayor of L.A. He just, he was a guy who put people together. He would, he introduced the world to bands like, Blondie and the Ramones, and he was the first to play those bands on the air, and so he was the guy you got your record to. And this was very DIY. This was very do-it-yourself. I mean, we Xeroxed our record covers. We folded them up and put them into little plastic bags that I think we stole from our friend who had a job at the record store. And
hey, whatever works, right? Come on.
Yeah, you do what you got to do.
Right.
You would go physically to the record stores and bring them 20 records, and say, can you, that was our distribution system. But Rodney was the first to play the Bangs on the air, and I happened to be in London the weekend that he was doing that, but I was in a phone booth, which some of your listeners, I hope, remember what that is.
Right, sure.
I was actually in a phone booth talking to my sister, who was back in L.A., and she was telling me that Rodney had been playing it every weekend.
Wow.
Jumping up and down. I was so excited.
Nice. Now you mentioned the Bangs. You actually were originally known as the Bangs. That was the original name of the band.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bangs.
And then you found out, well, you had to change it for some reason, right?
We had to change it because there was an all-boy band in, I want to say in New Jersey. I don't remember exactly where they're coming from, but they just decided, because they heard that we had signed with Miles Copeland as a manager, and Miles managed the Police, so I think they smelled money, and they said, no, we're the Bangs, and, for something like $40,000, you too can be the Bangs. And we said, well, thank you very much, we'll just add some letters to our name and go on from there.
And that's when you became the Bangles, right? Okay.
It is, and it was actually right around the time we were releasing that EP. Matter of fact, the first version of the artwork had the Bangs on it. And
really?
We had to go in and redo it and add the LE, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You're talking about Miles Copeland now. He, of course, managed the Police, but he also, from what I understand, I mean, he had the Go-Go's on his roster, and I imagine that, I thought I remember reading somewhere where at first you were kind of like, yeah, we don't want to really go with this guy because he's already got a girl group kind of thing, right?
Right, but he didn't manage the Go-Go's. He had signed them to his IRS label.
Okay, all right. He was on. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
We weren't signing to IRS, so it wasn't going to be like we were going to be label mates. The bands are very different musically. We're actually all really good friends. I think there was a lot of manufactured animosity between the two bands, but we love the Go-Go's. I mean, they put out that record in 1981, and I wanted to hate it, but I loved it.
Right.
I went, this is a great record.
It's a great
Oh my
record.
God.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we talk about this EP, so you signed with Miles Copeland, and he gets you back in the studio to do the Bangles EP, right? Is that how that worked?
Correct. Yeah, it was his kind of business plan to let's go in the studio, do an EP, and just on a small label, which it turned out to be one of his smaller labels, even, and kind of put that out just as something to generate some more talk. And we were all getting some nice local press and playing a lot in the LA area and the environs around LA. And it was just a way to kind of up our profile a little bit without going hat in hand with a demo to a label, which I never wanted to do and never did do, because it was not. It just never felt good to me.
Right.
So this way, we were just putting out a record, celebrating it. People loved it, and it was a way to get some more attention, and it ultimately worked. We ended up signing with Columbia Records.
Sure. Right. Now, so if I ask you a couple of songs that are, again, making their debut on CD or back in print here, "Want You," you wrote that one. That's got a real, garage sound to it. Is there anything you can tell me about that?
Yeah, it's kind of got a sort of Standell's speed pop rock thing going on. Yeah. Oh, it was a classic Vicki Peterson tale of unrequited love, which at the time informed most of my songs. And yeah, it was really fun. It's fun to play. We're going to be doing some shows this summer, and that's when I always have to dust off and go, how do I play that riff and sing the song at the same time? Okay.
Right, okay. So were you, you were definitely like a Nuggets devotee kind of thing of all the garage rock stuff? We
loved the Nuggets collections. We luckily had friends at Rhino Records, and we would like, hey, can I get that Nuggets collection?
Right, yeah, thanks. Exactly. That's good. And another one that sticks out, I really like Mary Street, and that was another you and Susanna collaboration kind of thing.
Oh, Mary Street, looking out your door. Oh, Mary Street, now what are you waiting for?
Yes, absolutely. That was one of our. We used to get together and we would talk for 45 minutes and almost write a little short story. We would come up with these characters, and Mary Street was sort of our Georgie girl.
Nice.
We really actually fleshed out this character. This is a girl who hasn't really found herself. She's dressing a little frumpy. She hasn't really blossomed yet, and let's give her a good pep talk here.
Now, you've also got some covers that I find really cool. You've got a Outside Chance. It's kind of an obscure song from the Turtles.
And you don't stand an outside chance. You don't stand an outside chance, but you can try.
That's awesome. And then Stepping Out from Paul Revere and the Raiders. Those are great.
Step, 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 step out on me.
So were you sprinkling in? Is this kind of a good representation of maybe what a Bangles live set would have been back in the day?
Absolutely, and actually that predates the Bangs because I was obsessed with that kind of pop, and Debbie and I played Outside Chance in our high school band, and Steppin' Out too, and so that was one of the first songs we all played with when we met Susanna. It's here, and she's a huge Paul Revere and the Raiders fan as well. And but yes, absolutely, we always did covers. We always would find, a slightly obscure but interesting cover to put in with our original stuff as well. And so that gives you a sense of where we were at. And I had the chance to meet Paul Revere last summer. And I had to sort of abashedly tell him, yeah, we recorded Steppin' Out, and I do a really poor version of you, but...
No. That's the...
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Embarrassing. I really had to take a few deep breaths before saying, yeah, let's include this one.
Right.
It's a little embarrassing.
Well-
But he couldn't have been more gracious and said he wants to hear it, so
Nice.
now I have to send him one.
Now, you talked about that the Bangles never put out a live record, and so you've got some tastes of the early days. You just tear through 7 and 7 Is. I think that's so cool. I mean, there's another, kind of slightly obscure, garage rock tune.
Yeah, that was a staple. We would often end the set with 7 and 7, or that was an encore. And if even to this day, if Debbie isn't completely exhausted and about to faint, we'll look it out.
Nice. Oh, and then you've actually got a taste of a song that would end up on All Over the Place. Tell Me. You got a live version there, huh? And so when you're auditioning live stuff, did you have a lot to could there be a Bangles or the Bangs live, could you dig more into that, or were you kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here?
Probably for Bangs there's a lot more stuff from the Bangles. We could theoretically put out a Bangles live record from that era, and there is an audio version. We did do a House of Blues tour in the, early part of this century, actually, and put out a DVD in concert that's live, and that has an audio component. So I was just thinking there is technically a live album.
Right.
But going back to the ancient history, we didn't record that much stuff back in Bang's days. People weren't walking around with portable recorders in their pockets,
right,
like they do now.
Yeah.
So no, there's not a whole lot from that era, and we wanted to keep this whole package pretty tightly tied chronologically.
Easy to say, right?
But we did include the 2 tracks, and that has Michael Steele on bass, and so it's a little bit later in Bangles history,
right?
Now, history.
Now this Rarities compilation ends with a couple of kind of bizarre things. No mag commercial, and then you've got like the rock and roll alternative program theme song. So where do those come from?
Here's the Bangs from No Magazine.
Came out the other day. The new No Mag is out on the stand. So yeah.
Right. And by the way, the rock and roll alternative, feel free to go ahead and fade that out at about a minute and a half.
Oh, I like all the screaming and all the stuff that's
screaming it. We just were screaming it. That's why I really thought we just cannot put this whole thing on. It repeats the same thing over and over again for 4 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of funny. If you really listen, there's some funny stuff at the end. So
right.
If you're feeling really committed.
Sure.
But anyway, the No Mag, that was an amazing arts and music magazine. It was I'd call it a fanzine because at the time a lot of publications that were popping up in Los Angeles were considered fanzines, meaning that they were very low budget, usually printed on poor paper and Xeroxed, and sometimes not even stapled together, sometimes just folded, and they were really just for fans and for people who were in the scene. But No Mag to me always seemed a few steps above that. It was very it was very concerned with the art scene, the music scene. It included graphic artists' work and poetry and all kinds of stuff. It was really interesting, and we were lucky to kind of get involved with them early on and decided to do a version of Getting Out of Hand, which we were able to play again on Rodney Bingenheimer's radio show, where they advertised.
Nice.
So that's what that's for.
Okay. Nice. All right. And so if you were talking about how you always tried to do covers, I have to ask about September Girls.
September girls do so much and for so long till we touched.
Because once you got signed to Columbia, we take it for granted now that you can pull up anything on your phone. You know what I mean? Like anything, nothing's rare. There's absolutely nothing rare anymore, you know? And it's like, so back then, did you have somebody that actually had a coveted copy of the Big Star album kind of thing?
Absolutely. There was kind of a little Big Star fever that swept through our friends in the early 80s. And, you know, at that time the band had already, you know, kind of come and gone. I mean, they were, but we just all became mildly obsessed with them. And I can't even remember, to be honest, who. It might have been Steve Wynn. I was a housemate at that time with Steve Wynn and Michael Steele, and I think it was Mickey who actually suggested that we do September Girl. She wanted to sing it. She just did a beautiful job on it, I think, on the record.
Yeah.
But you know, it was one of them who had a much better record collection than I did, and that was probably Steve Wynn, because he had crazy good record collection.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Steve Wynn on this show too, so I'm sure that's probably.
Good.
I imagine that's he's definitely kind of more of a music preservationist kind of thing. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he was fanatical about it. He, as a matter of fact, there was a rule in his room where you could play any record you wanted, but you had to put it back where you got it. So
right.
So I'd have to pull out the record next to it to remember where it went.
Just to make sure. Right. No, it's interesting. So, you know, if we talk about Columbia, how was that? I mean, you talked about how you're not going to go, you know, from label to label with your hat in your hand kind of thing.
Yeah.
Was it more of an organic thing of Columbia coming to you?
Absolutely. And that's how we wanted it. Yeah, we had it wasn't like we were being besieged by record labels, but there were a few suitors. But we liked the guys from Columbia. They were the most, they were persistent, and they were interested, and they seemed to get it. And that was a big deal. And they were nice guys, and in those days, A&R guys aren't always nice guys.
Right.
But this was, you know, Peter Philbin and Ron Oberman, and you know, they were just the right ones. And
A&R guys, what's that, right?
Well, yes.
Right, now these
You
days.
have to explain to your younger listeners.
Right. Well, you know, if we talk quickly about the peak success of the Bangles, what I guess to see it on paper is amazing. 2 number 1 hits, 2 number 2 hits.
Look around, leaves are brown, and the sky is a hazy shade of winter.
That when you look back at that time, is it just a blur now because you just kind of hit fast forward once the success hit, or were you able to kind of look back on that and actually, you know, look fondly back on it, or was it just tumultuous and crazy?
I definitely look fondly back on it, but it was tumultuous and crazy.
Both, right? Okay.
And it was a blur, you know, and because yeah, we were just going nonstop, and the touring was nonstop, and you'd get home for a couple of days and turn around and go back out, hit another continent, go to Japan, come back, and then you have a couple of weeks to write your next record, and then a couple of months to make it, which is funny in these days.
Right.
Spend 6 months making a record, theoretically, and then, I mean, maybe it's not that different from now. I mean, maybe if you're Rihanna, I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, if you take away the paparazzi, which thank God didn't really exist in the 80s, I mean, not to the level that it does today.
Right.
You know, and that feeling of constantly being on, needing to be constantly on stage, in touch, visible. If you kind of dial that back a bit, you know, she's probably dealing with on the same level of insanity. You know, I mean, it's just nonstop, and people are always wanting you to do something for them. Here, do this show, do this, you know, promotional tour, do this, do that, you know, and I mean, it's probably worse now
right.
than it was when we did it. But that being said, it was just, you know, I mean, we worked really hard, but you know, and ultimately at the end of 9 years of it, we were kind of, you know, toast.
Right.
And, you know, and needed a long break, which is what we took.
Right. And I mean, and you did. You took a long break, and it's like that probably did more for all of you than anything, because then you were able to probably appreciate getting back together, I would think.
Well, it definitely enabled us to, you know, work through any emotional detritus that we had left behind, and when we did come together, we came together absolutely on our own terms and with a pretty clear understanding of what we wanted and how it was going to work. And Debbie and Susanna and I work together better now than we ever have, and and I think part of it is just because it's not nonstop and it's not our entire lives. We have other things. We have families. We have other projects, and I think that's healthy at this point in time. So when you're 24, you're running on 11 all the time, and you want to you want to do what you need to do, and it's great, but there are other aspects of life, so you figure that out later.
Right. Absolutely. Now, with the sudden passing of Prince, I mean, he, in a lot of respects, helped you guys because you had that first big hit, Manic Monday, was written by him. That's just it's just unbelievable to even think that he's gone. It's just crazy.
It's unbelievable. It is. I mean, I actually spoke with Mickey Steele shortly after, and she just said, how is it possible that we're living in a world where we exist and he doesn't?
Right.
It just felt wrong because this guy was so concerned with his health, and he was a healthy guy, and he was a very, very disciplined musician and person, and obviously he had health issues and other issues that he was dealing with that were completely overwhelming, which very few people knew about.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge loss because that man was never going to and didn't stop making music until the day he left the earth. Right. And he never would have. He'd be the 95-year-old, putting out whatever would pass for records when he was 95. Right. Exactly.
So, well, the last studio record you ladies put out was 2011. So, it's been a little while. All right, you got some new material possibly on the back burner somewhere.
There's definitely new material. I think I know both Suzanne and I are kind of wrapping up other projects, and so the idea of a Bangles record right now is not on the table. Right. But I have learned in my aged wisdom to never say never. So,
right.
So there you have it.
Right. Okay. And I'm noticing some tour dates kind of August-ish, right?
Yes, absolutely. We are out for a couple of weeks in August, at the end of August, mostly East Coast, as it turns out. And then we have some dates on the West Coast later in the year. Okay. So now with the Rarities collection and you hitting the road, the obvious question would be, do you have to relearn some of this old stuff kind of thing? Well, luckily, over the last couple of years, we've been playing a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
It's another one of the reasons why it sort of reinvigorated the idea of let's just get this out in a physical form, because we were having so much fun playing it.
Nice. Okay, all right. So that's better then, because I.
Yeah, I do have to go and figure out how to play "Want You," but yes.
Okay, nice. Okay, all right. Well, the new collection from the Bangles is called "Ladies and Gentlemen the Bangles," and you got a website, right, where people can stay on contact.
Absolutely.
Thebangles.com. Thebangles.com. Okay, fantastic.
Correct.
You got tour dates and all that kind of stuff up there too.
All that good stuff.
So good deal. All right. Well, Vicki, it was great talking to you, and good luck, and we hope to see you on the road then. All right.
Thanks. So I hope we get out to your neighborhood in the relatively near future. It's been a while.
Hey, it's Vicki Peterson there of the Bangles, and the new Rarities collection really, I think, offers a more honest side of the Bangles, you might say, because the albums that they put out, especially in the 80s, they were good, but they were just really heavily produced. And Ladies and Gentlemen, the Bangles really gives you a better picture of kind of where they came from. So good stuff there. Well, I'm Tony Peters. Appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
You've been listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Want more great interviews? Head over to iconfetch.com. There, you'll find every interview we've ever done, plus CD reviews, This Day in Music, and a random album of the day. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Who is Tony going to interview next? It could be you. Send what you've got to Tony Peters. Icon Fetch, P.O. Box 292134, Dayton, Ohio 45429. Or email Tony at host@iconfetch.com. Until next time, this is Joe Kelly. Have a great day.